Over the past 10,000 years, human beings have done a wonderful job of technological innovation to increase food supply. Specifically over the past century, we are now able to produce massive amounts of food never before seen in history. We are able to produce food in a variety of fashions, but as with every decision to be made, there are costs and benefits to doing so. In developed society, a predominant technique of food production is industrialized agriculture. Industrial agriculture, or conventional agriculture, includes the use of artificial fertilizer, synthetic pesticides and herbicides, and genetically modified organisms. Conventional agriculture producers seek maximum efficiency. Industrial agriculture, while using very efficient techniques for high-yielding food production, has many dangerous environmental repercussions. As we are citizens of an environment at risk, it is our responsibility to obtain and utilize the knowledge necessary to change malpractices of industrial agriculture to protect ourselves and future generations. What so few people realize about our industrialized food production system is that it is very costly in both the short and long term. For example, the industrial characteristic of monocropping culture, as depicted in this slide, is very harmful to eco-conscious food production. Monocropping has little environmental potential because of the externalities it has caused upon industries that do not require these environmentally degrading technologies. Monocropping requires farmers to oversaturate soil with nutrients that become washed out of soil and carried away to unrelated ecosystems. These ecosystems thereby have an unbalanced nutrient concentration, which promotes the growth of toxic algae, leading to biodiversity loss, which creates ecosystem dead zones. Most geographically relevant to us is the Gulf of Mexico dead zone. This occurred because of the nutrient imbalance due to excess fertilizer from Midwestern farms being carried through the Mississippi into the Gulf of Mexico, which has subsequent toxic algae growth as a result, as depicted in this slide. This problem is very costly, considering the Union of Concerned Scientists conducted a recent study estimating the national price tag for fertilizer pollution at $157 billion per year. This is either paid for at the expense of unrelated producers or by taxpayer dollars, as government is responsible for providing solutions to many of these problems. Monocropping cultures had very much success in increasing food production, however. Purdue University researchers had found that consequent of monocropping in a dense fashion, global yields improve, so we anticipate less area planted toward crops. This is theoretically eco-conscious because the less land devoted to agriculture, the more land could be allocated toward more productive ecosystems like wetlands. But the massive space required for aggregate industrialized farming production negates this promise to revitalize productive ecosystems. There is a high economic incentive for harmful industrial agriculture to remain prominent in our society nonetheless. The industrialized farming system has gained momentum in the agriculture industry due to the almost artificial advantages it has had in its marketplace. In the United States alone, industrial farming practices have received government subsidies to keep the businesses afloat. Obsolete farm laws, which date back to the New Deal era of the 1930s, protect farms from shutdowns to ensure food production remains stable, regardless of price fluctuations. Most recently introduced was the 2014 Insurance Farm Bill. The biggest problem of this law has resulted in high-end farms receiving 82% of all subsidies under these programs, according to the American Enterprise Institute. While these laws make sense to protect vital resources, these successful firms are getting paid for no reason. In other terms, they are profiting from their business even though the market status of the agriculture industry would shut these firms down under free market conditions. The allocation of these laws is demonstrated in this slide, and as it shows, there are numerous monocropping plants that are devoted toward these 2014 farm bills. Even though the U.S. government, among others, believes that this is the only way to ensure stable food production of these goods, other nations have refuted this belief. A study of subsidy reduction by a New Zealand university found a stronger and more innovative industry would emerge that had greater resilience to market fluctuations. What this proves exactly is how these programs are depleting the farming industry of growth, because current firms can comfortably remain the same. Even if certain farming corporations would go bankrupt with the loss of subsidies, it would provide new companies space to enter the market, both in an economic and tangible sense. These companies would likely promote long-term sustainability, as that would be learned from subsidy reduction is that farms, like every other business, needs to address sustainability without constant incentive to not do so. Thus, this unnatural farming market is unfairly advantaged towards successful producers to essentially be stagnant in efficiency, which goes hand in hand with eco-consciousness. What further hurts a potential to innovate production processes with an environmentally sound impact is industrial agriculture's reduction of producer variety. As certain industrial farming corporations expand due to their cheap, reckless production methods and government reward for doing so, is their marketplace control. Industrialized farming companies live and breathe for the goal of monopolies and reduced labor output, which poses the problem that once vibrant rural communities are at continued risk as the loss of jobs and business opportunities represented by mid-sized farm continues, as found by the Union of Concerned Scientists. This problem is very troubling because it reduces the demand for labor, and if there is a shortage of jobs, taxpayer dollars will have to pay to assure those who become structurally unemployed are able to survive. Also, given a monopolistic market structure, it allows for firms to be price creators instead of price takers, so the producers have a wide control over the consumers, as represented by this slide. Dominant industrial agriculture firms have much power in continuing their malpractices that harm the environment, thereby the citizens of the affected land. Thus, the government should step into this issue to protect its citizens because that is its theoretical intent. We are all citizens of an environment in jeopardy, thus we should take action for our own well-being. While there may be political opposition to a revamp of industrial agriculture currently, we live in a representative democracy. This allows us, as citizens, to vote for governmental figures that work against issues we care about. Thus, there is hope for a change of malpractices of industrial agriculture, and it begins with us, citizens of a country and environment, with small actions like voting. I'm Dan Nyhan, and this concludes my TED Talk.